Hello, all you happy people. FNAF, as we know it, is dead. Yep, I said it. Or, at least dead to me anyway. What once was a dark, mature, twisted tale of loss, murder, and redemption has now been reduced to a boring, childish story, filled with sentient robots, cyborgs, and viruses threatening to take over the world. Five Nights at Freddy's is a pathetic mess of overly convoluted lore, mediocre at best stories, and pathetic games that mostly don't live up to the hype. And the movie? Well, as every trailer passes, my hope for the movie we've been waiting for almost a decade plummets. I'll get to that later. So yeah, welcome to my review/rant/summary of Ruin, the FNAF movie's trailers, and pretty much the state of FNAF as a whole. So, Ruin sucks. The gameplay is boring, it isn't scary, and the story is non-existent. Hey, that reminds me of another FNAF game. But hey, at least there's no bugs! I mean, Ruin is a definite step up from Security Breach. I mean, with the pile of horse crap that Security Breach is, I don't think you can get any worse. I mean, the only way is up, right? Yeah, so Ruin is a tad better when it comes to atmosphere, graphics, and overall polish. I mean, in my experience, I haven't experienced like a single bug. This time, it feels like Steelwool actually remembered that they were making a horror game, you know? Unfortunately, this game is as scary as the average Teletubbies episode. I think Steelwool needs to learn that broken robots and dusty buildings does not equal scary. Oh, yeah, did I mention the gameplay was absolutely abysmal? Oh, I did. Oh. Well, it still is. The gameplay loop basically comes down to this. Explore for 5 minutes, do a bland puzzle, explore for 5 more minutes, get jump scared, so on and so forth. The story is nonsensical and filled with plot holes that will probably be explained in the next 6 books. Everything just feels so, I don't know, not thought out? Everything, down to the unsatisfying endings, the boring gameplay loop, and the story just, the quality isn't there, you know? Now listen, I want to say I'm sorry to Steelwool Studios for being so harsh, but, I kinda have to. You guys were selected by Scott Cawthon, the Scott Cawthon himself, the pioneer of indie horror, to continue his legacy of high-quality games with intriguing story. And you have failed miserably on all fronts. Security Breach and its DLC are both horrific pieces of crap. And the worst part is, they just don't feel like FNAF. In fact, that's the main problem with FNAF as a whole now. It's lost what originally made it interesting. Originally, FNAF was semi-realistic. The animatronics looked legit enough, the pizzerias always looked like they could realistically exist and kids would enjoy them, and hey, Scott even perfectly captured the essence of every evil, selfish, and greedy megacorporation ever with Fazbear Entertainment. Everything was as realistic as it possibly could be, you know, with a paranormal horror story. Which really helped with the immersion. Listen, I was one of the OGs. I've been around since the very first FNAF game, and I remember when the most futuristic technology in the games were the spring lock suits. But now everything's all sentient AI, viruses, cyborgs, robots that look, act, and feel identical to humans. I don't know about you, but that just doesn't feel like FNAF. Sure, the whole robot doppelganger thing has existed since 2016, but that was only in the books. Speaking of books, I miss the times when the games would give you a basic, easy-to-understand plot in the actual game, and if you were into the lore, then maybe Scott would toss you a few bones here and there. Everything was so much simpler. But now you have to waste hours of your lives reading all 21 FNAF books, and yes, I checked, I'm excluding the graphic novels and the guides. I'm not up to date with the lore, so I was entirely confused on what this mimic thing was and why it existed, so I had to look it up. And as I was studying, it came to me. I could give a flying frick who Cassie is, who the mimic is, what's happening with Glitch Trap, all of it. My 7-year-old self would die from a heart attack if he heard his future self saying this, but I don't care about the FNAF story anymore. Five Nights at Freddy's isn't Five Nights at Freddy's anymore. we've got a problem when the first thing I think of when someone says the phrase FNAF free roam is the joy of creation, not one unnecessary night with kid-friendly Freddy. At this point, the fan games feel more like FNAF than the actual games do. I'm so sick and tired of this over-sanitized, kid-friendly stuff that Steel Wool and Scott keep dumping down our throats. And that's another thing, too. I'm so tired of everybody saying that FNAF is for kids. I mean, it is now, but it wasn't ever supposed to be. Kids will always be attracted to things that they can't have, such as pretty much anything horror. I mean, hey, some kids taste alcohol before they're 13, so does that mean that alcohol is for kids? No. Anyway, enough about, maybe I'll talk about that later. Where was I? Oh yeah. If FNAF from now on is just going to be these mediocre games, then, well, I don't think the series should continue. Like, seriously, the games are bad, the lore is too much, nobody at Steel Wool can even figure out a new antagonist for the series. And yes, William Afton is still the bad guy. The only reason Scott and Steel Wool settled on the Mimic as the bad guy is so that they can continue using Springtrap motifs and symbolism and say it's not William when it very clearly is. That, and because of all the hate they got from bringing Afton back in Security Breach. So yeah, FNAF, at least in the narrative and gaming aspects, is pretty much dead to me. And yeah, speaking of narrative, now we've got the movie. I mean, I don't have much gripes with the movie because it's not out yet, but there are a few things that I do not like in the trailers. First, let me get this out of the way. I hate the red eyes. Yeah, I know. This is probably the coldest of takes. But to me, that's not the main issue. For me, the main issue is the emotion you can see on the animatronics' faces in the trailers. In the trailers, especially trailer 1, you can see the animatronics' eyebrows go down, giving them an angry look. And that's so stupid. It's such a cheap, try-hard way of saying, ooh, look, danger. I think the main problem with a fandom nowadays is the creators, whoever's making these trailers, or whoever's making the movie, everybody's seeing these animatronics not as possessed vessels by, like, dead kids, but instead they see them more as, like, I'm trying to think of Disney mascots. Remember, the animatronics aren't, Freddy isn't Freddy. Bonnie isn't Bonnie. These animatronics aren't supposed to have emotion. That's what made them scary in the first place. They're too humanized. That's what I think. Now, when I bring this up to my friends, they'll just say stuff like, be thankful for we're getting a movie at all, or maybe William Afton's controlling them, like in the books. First of all, I'd rather have no FNAF movie than a really crappy one. Second of all, William Afton never controlled the animatronics in the books. He just wore a spring Bonnie suit and pretended to be one of them. What, you think Afton just sat in his office in the books, fursuit on, watching the cameras while twirling his mustache and holding a cartoonishly oversized remote? No. You know, another thing I hear from my friends is, well, Scott is in control of the movie. Yeah, well, Scott's in control of Security Breach, FNAF AR, and Ruin too. I don't have to say anything else about that. Listen, my fear is that the FNAF... I hope I'm wrong. I'm hoping the FNAF movie will be everything that we've been waiting for so long. But my fear is that the FNAF movie will turn out to be a cheesy, not take itself seriously kind of comedy thriller, like that one FNAF ripoff movie with Nick Cage in it. Yeah, everyone here wants the gritty psychological horror. The entire fan base wants that, I'm sure. And if you don't want that, you're insane. No, I'm joking. Man, well, that's the end of my rant. Am I maybe a little too obsessed with some movie and game series? Yeah, probably. Listen, I just want FNAF to succeed, that's all. Anyway, that's the video. Thanks for watching. Sub if you feel like it, and comment if you want me to tell how much of a moron I am. Godspeed.